Hello, I'm going to show you how I use SOUNDTRAP with my middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. They use it on their Chromebooks, and we make digital music, and I teach form for the most part. If you hand SOUNDTRAP to them from the get-go and say, make some music, it'll be gibberish, right? They might be proud of it, which is cool, and sometimes I'll do this as an exercise, just make whatever you want. But there'll be no form. There are not sections that return. It doesn't sound cohesive. Nothing is predictable in terms of how long each track might be played. So I'll show you how I do this and how I scaffold it. First of all, I have to explain this is your profile, right? If you see your name or your email at the top. And this is where all your projects will be saved once you are done with them, once you hit save. Okay. First up, we click Enter Studio. Studio is their name for the DAW, the actual digital audio workstation. Okay, it's going to ask if we want to make music or podcasts, and we'll do both down the road. Obviously, we'll start with music. I usually just click on the X or music, whichever one. Next up, this is what a DAW looks like, and I explained to them, this is what any DAW looks like. So the skills that you learn here in SOUNDTRAP can be converted to like a Logic or an Ableton or any other DAW that like a producer might use if you decide to take this seriously in the future. So first of all, there's a ruler at the top. Okay, just like a ruler with inches or centimeters, you are going to call them measures in music. And we're not really concerned with the lines in the middle for right now. We're just looking at the major lines, and I can click on this ruler and move this purple thing around. This purple thing is going to be called the cursor in a DAW, right? And if I place that at the beginning and I hit the play button at the bottom, the cursor will move forever. And I have to explain that to them because they don't quite understand that once it's done playing music, it will keep moving, right? So when I'm done and I don't want the cursor to move anymore, I have to hit pause. This usually isn't on. I don't know why that's on right now. Okay, so I'll move that back to the beginning. Play and pause. Now, this button here looks really enticing. Like that's where we begin. And I don't really start there. We'll use it weeks and weeks and weeks down the line. But what we really want to start with is this purple button. These are called loops or tracks, basically the same thing. Okay? These are all the sounds I have available to me to use. SOUNDTRAP is suggesting what they call originals. I don't know what that is. It's showing me a limited amount of tracks. So I want you to click on the X. Now you have access to every track. And there are thousands. And I have to tell my students that. There are thousands and thousands of tracks here, right? The reason I emphasize that is they will use, let me move my picture here. They will use these first, on their Chromebooks, they can see like the first 6. They will use those first 6. And if they scroll, they'll go about this far and then make their whole project with these. So I try to like ingrain it into their memory here. I say, look at this bar as I scroll and look at all these tracks that I'm going by. Look at them all. And I'm still on what letter? B, right? I'm only 2 letters into the alphabet right now. And look, we're not even close to halfway. So please, I tell them if you're bored of the sounds you're hearing, just say, what does R have to offer? And skip down to R. Right? Find something there. Utilize that list. In fact, I tell them that there are no anthem parts allowed in the first few projects. You are not allowed to use these. Because if you make a project using these anthem tracks, especially these Bs, that tells me you didn't scroll through the list. Okay? That's important. So, I'm going to close that for right now. We'll go back to that in a second. There are 6 buttons right here. I really wish SOUNDTRAP didn't put those buttons there right in the middle of where we place our music, because you and I tell my students, will click on these by accident. And I don't want you to ever click on those. Not now. So if you ever have one of these big scary windows pop up, it's kind of daunting. And I tell my students, just go over to the left and click on the X and you're right back out of it. This thing is called a loop bar. It's usually about this long. Oops. This long. And if you click on it, it will turn off. What does the loop bar do? If I'm hitting play, as the cursor gets to the end, it will jump back to the beginning. Okay, and I use that to work on specific sections. But when I'm done working on it, I turn it off. And now as the cursor approaches, it's just going to go right past it. Pause. This is empty. I can click on these 3 dots and just delete that. I don't need that there. Okay, I think that's everything. Let's make some music. My first lesson with my middle schoolers, once I go through that big lecture about how all of this works, is to open up the loops, click on the X if it says originals, and I ask them to make a burger. So first of all, I ask them to find a synth part. Synth. Now, what I just did is something I asked them to never do. Please don't just go find a random track. I'm going to do that here so I don't waste time, okay? But I try to tell them, you should be listening to each track until you find one you like. And when you do, you just drag it into the beginning. And then I play this game with them. Is this the beginning? No, right? It has to be all the way to the left. It has to. Now, I can zoom out using this minus magnifying glass, and I should be able to see the whole thing. So I'm going to zoom out. I can hit play and listen. Right? And I give them 5 minutes to find something that they like. Then I tell them, turn your loop bar on, let it play. Click on the X. And find something different that goes with it. So they would go through and find a different synth part, and they put it underneath. And I have to explain to them. You'll notice this, I call it a channel, appears underneath. When you drop a track in, it will create a new channel with its name. And now they have 2 on top of each other. If there's extra time in this first lesson, I ask them to put a 3rd one in. And they have a blast doing that because it's brand new to them. They really do. Okay? For you as the teacher, this is where I would end the lesson. But I call this the burger because it sort of looks like a sideways view of a burger. In fact, you could go to these 3 dots and change the colors to more bun-like colors and make it a hamburger, kind of. I say the word burger a million times a day. This is a burger. Wait a minute. This is not a burger. That burger was way too long, so let me try it again. There we go. Okay, so something I failed to mention to you, if you're brand new to SOUNDTRAP, is when you get your 3 tracks in there, 98% of these tracks will be 8 measures long when you add them into the project. I tell them at the beginning, if you get one that's too short or too long, don't use it. Go find a different one because there's a really, really small number of these that are not 8 measures automatically. Another thing you'll need to teach them as I zoom in is if I asked a new class, new to SOUNDTRAP, how many measures is my burger? They will tell you 9 every single time. So I have to explain to them how a measure goes from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, right? All the way up here from 8. Measure 8 goes from here to here. And then I say, did I go through measure 9? They say, no. So it's 8 measures long right up to where measure 9 begins, but I didn't go into it. That part will be confusing for weeks. You will have kids that don't understand that. Okay, here's my burger. Let me show you my illustration. This is the burger. And I tell them at the beginning that they have to do this, but later on when they start asking, like, do I have to use a synth? I tell them it's optional. This is more of a recommendation if you don't know where to start. But at the beginning, I ask them to do this, right? The top track should be a synth. So when you open up your loop menu, you can click on the word synth, and it will only show you the synth parts. Start with that. The second one needs to be a bass. As a bass player, please teach them that even though it looks like bass, we pronounce it bass when we're in a music setting. Okay, so you go up here, you click on the X, you click on bass, and now it filters only the bass parts. Beat. if they have a synth, a bass, and a beat, it teaches them that they can't have 3 bass parts at once. It's not gonna line up. It's gonna sound muddy. If they have 3 beats, there's no harmonic content or melodic content. That has worked for me for a bit. Synth, bass, beat, and they end up memorizing that. That is a burger. So that's the first class. I'll stop rambling. I'll make another video about the next class. Thanks.